We're always told that English is the world's language. But how true is that really? Today, we're going to find out. We are going on a journey ranking countries by how many people actually speak English fluently. And I'm telling you, some of these results are going to completely flip what you think you know.
So let's just ask it outright. How much of the world really speaks English, and speaks it well? You've probably got some numbers in your head for countries like Germany or India. Let's see how close your guesses are to the real deal.
All right, to kick things off, let's just start with the most populous country on Earth. In China, less than 1%, let me say that again, less than 1% of the population speaks fluent English, just 0.9%. That single stat right there totally changes the scale of what we think of as global English. It really sets the stage for the climb we're about to make.
So we are starting our climb from the very bottom. And in this first group of countries, a really powerful theme jumps out almost immediately. Having a massive population has almost nothing to do with how many people speak English.
And this table just perfectly illustrates that point. China isn't some weird outlier. Look at Brazil and Russia, both sitting at just 5%. India, a country many of us think of as being English-speaking, is only at 10.5%, and Mexico is just a little bit higher at 12.9%. So the big takeaway here is that for these huge countries, fluency is absolutely the exception, not the rule.
And it's not just the population giants that are hanging out at the low end of the scale. Take a look at these really familiar European nations. You've got Italy, Turkey, and Spain all sitting well below the 25% mark. It's a pretty strong reminder that just because you're in Europe, maybe even right next door to the UK, doesn't automatically mean a high level of English proficiency.
Okay, so let's pause for a second as we move into what I call the crowded middle of our ranking. This is where things get really interesting. We've got this wild mix of countries from every corner of the globe, all kind of clustered together in a similar proficiency range.
And this just shows that diversity perfectly. I mean, look at the 30% tier. You have Indonesia, a powerhouse in Southeast Asia, right next to South Africa and Romania, with Egypt not far behind at almost 40%. It just goes to show you there isn't one single path to English proficiency. You have all these different regions arriving at a pretty similar place.
All right, time for a little pop quiz. Looking at these two countries, which one do you think has more English speakers? On one side, you have Pakistan, a major nation in South Asia. On the other, Germany, an economic leader right in the heart of Europe. Go on, make your guess.
So what's the answer? Well, it's basically a tie. And depending on which source you look at, Pakistan could even be higher. Germany's at a solid 56%, while Pakistan's fluency rate is somewhere between 49 and 58%. I mean, that result just completely shatters the common assumption that a developed Western European nation would automatically be miles ahead.
And here's another fact that really drives this point home. The Philippines, at 58.2%, actually beats France and is right up there with Belgium. This is a perfect example of how historical ties and how English is treated in the school system can be a much stronger predictor of fluency than just where you are on a map.
All right, we've left that crowded middle section behind us, and we are now getting close to the summit. Let's take a breath here, because we're entering territory where speaking English fluently starts to become the norm, not the exception. And our gateway into this top tier is Austria, coming in at a really impressive 73%. This is a huge jump from the countries we've seen so far, and it's a clear signal that we've entered the high proficiency club.
And from here, this incredible regional pattern just takes over. Look at this. It's Northern European dominance. You've got Finland at 75%, Denmark at 86%, Sweden at 89%, and Norway hitting a remarkable 90%. This whole cluster just showcases a deep cultural and educational commitment to English. Learning it early in school, watching movies and TV in English. It's a whole regional thing.
And that brings us to our final section, the home stretch, the 90% club. These are the absolute best of the best. The countries where, honestly, it would be a genuine surprise to find someone who doesn't speak English. Let's make this final climb.
And right at the top of all the non-native speakers are the Netherlands, with a staggering 90.9% fluency rate. They are pretty much always ranked as the best non-native English speakers on the planet, and a number like that, well, it certainly backs it up. Now, of course, we have the Anglosphere, the core native English-speaking countries, but notice something fascinating here. Not a single one of them is at 100%. Australia's at 92.8%, the US is at 95.5%, and even the UK and Ireland don't quite hit the mark. It just goes to show you that even in these nations, you can't take universal fluency for granted.
Which, of course, begs the question, after this whole journey, does any place on our list actually hit 100% fluency? Is there a perfect score out there?
Well, there is. The one and only place on our list with 100% English fluency is Gibraltar. It's this tiny British overseas territory right on the southern tip of Spain, and its unique mix of British administration, constant back and forth with Spain, and a fully bilingual education system makes it the undisputed champion.
So, after that climb from less than 1% all the way to a perfect 100, what's the big picture? Let's take a moment, zoom out, and really think about what this data tells us about English in the world today.
So what do we learn here? Well, first, the term English-speaking country is kind of messy. Fluency is never uniform, not even in the UK. Second, it proves that a giant population doesn't mean high proficiency. What really matters are things like history and education policy. And finally, geography can be totally misleading. I mean, just look at the unbelievable gap between Spain at 22% and the Netherlands at over 90%. It really changes how you look at a world map.
And all of that brings us to a final thought. When you look at this complex, surprising map of language, it really makes you wonder, with the rise of new economic powers and all this new technology, what's this map going to look like in 20 years?